I love Octillery. Its design is so simple, yet charming. Octillery is widely regarded as the second best Pokemon in modern GCNU, and it isn't at all unreasonable to consider it the single best Pokemon. It's one of the most iconic Pokemon in the format, and its presence defines GSCNU. Octillery is very easy to slap on teams, and it's very consistent in battle. Octillery's role in GSCNU is true to its design. It's a tank, and a damn good one at that. Octillery can check many prominent Pokemon in GSCNU. Its solid bulk and great defensive typing mean it doesn't go down easily. Offensively, it has a high special attack stat, and water is a fantastic offensive typing. Octillery has few long-term switch-ins, and some of them can lose to coverage moves. It's very hard to go wrong with Octillery. Octillery has a huge effect on team building, and Pokemon who can punish it are valuable solely because of that ability. Octillery isn't perfect, but it's really, really darn good. Let's analyse GCNU's second in command, the Jet Pokemon. Octillery's set of traits fit in beautifully with the GCNU metagame. Water is a fantastic typing, both offensively and defensively. Octillery also possesses good defensive stats and an astounding special attack stat of 105. That is the highest special attack stat in the tier. Let's start off Octillery's defensive side. Mono water typing is only weak to grass and electric. GCNU is lacking in Pokemon of these types though. The only two electric types are Little Cup Pokemon, and most of the grass types are NFEs or Little Cups. One of the electric types, Magnemite, is not at all a good Octillery answer, and all the grass types can be hit by Ice Beam. Octillery's typing and bulk let it check ground and rock types, like Dugtrio, Sudowoodo, Graveler, and Pupitar, as well as fire types, like Ninetales, Rapidash, and Magmar. Octillery also resists water and ice, so it can use Dugong and Ice Beam variants of Octillery as an opportunity to rest back its HP. Its good bulk let it trade hits with Xatu, the most common Pokemon in the tier. If your Octillery has Hidden Power Electric, and an opponent's Octillery has Ice Beam, then you wall them and 3KO them. Very few Pokemon can 2KO Octillery without boosting or using Explosion. Octillery can check the two most common offensive Pokemon in Xatu and Dugtrio, among a slew of other threats. This alone is a valuable niche, but Octillery is much more than a bulky water. On the offensive side of things, it's a monster. Octillery Surf 3KOs nearly everything. Xatu, Weezing, Stantler, Primeape, Persian, Fearow, Porygon, they all get 3KO'd. Even the specially bulky duo of Wigglytuff and Dunsparce are 3KO'd after spikes. Pokemon that are frailer on the special side, like Pineco and Magnemite, are straight up 2KO'd. Several other Pokemon are 2KO'd because of their weakness to Surf, like Sudowoodo, Rapidash, Magmar, Flareon, and Ninetales. Dugtrio is OHKO'd because of its lower special defense, which further improves Octillery's matchup against it. There are few Pokemon in GCNU that resist water, and everything that doesn't takes a lot of damage from Surf. Octillery always runs a coverage move for one of the water resistant types anyway. Hidden Power Electric hits opposing water types. It 2KOs Kingler, 3KOs opposing Octillery, and 4-hit KOs Dugong. Ice Beam, meanwhile, 2-hit KOs Gloom. But that actually isn't the main reason to run Ice Beam. The main reason to run Ice Beam are better DVs and Sleep Top pulls against Dugtrio. If you run Hidden Power Electric, then you have a chance to pull it against Substitute Screech Dugtrio, which is obviously bad. Ice Beam doesn't have this issue. Ice Beam also immediately 2KOs Xatu and Firo, which Hidden Power Electric fails to do. Despite that though, HP Electric is more common in the current metagame. If you run Ice Beam Octillery, and opposing Hidden Power Electric Octillery walls you, 3KOs you, and punishes the rest of your team. It also means you are completely walled by Dugong, and give free setup to Kingler. For most teams, giving Hidden Power Electric Octillery free turns is a major no-no. Not giving opposing waters free turns is more valuable than having good sleep talks versus Dugtrio. Ice Beam is more commonly seen on teams that have a check to opposing Octillery. Chinchou teams, for example, don't need Hidden Power Electric for opposing Octillery, so they can run Ice Beam. Ice Beam also improves Octillery's matchup versus Dugtrio, who can OHKO Chinchou. Ice Beam variants of Octillery also face competition from Dugong, who while weaker, is bulkier and has stab on its Ice Beam. Dugong would be worse at using Hidden Power Electric than Octillery because of its lower special attack. Octillery is one of the strongest offensive Pokemon in GSCNU. It doesn't need to set up to pose a threat. It's a major threat the first turn it's out. Arrest Hawk set with Surf, and one of Octillery's coverage moves is the only set you'll rarely see. Rest Hawk gives Octillery significant longevity. It lets Octillery stick around and take on fire and ground types with great areas. Rest Hawk also lets Octillery absorb status, further improving its longevity. Rest Hawk Octillery sticks around and consistently trades hits with foes like Xatu. Thanks to its incredible defensive utility, Octillery is incredibly easy to slap on teams. Some people, like myself, consider one of Octillery or Dugong mandatory on most teams. Not using them makes you a lot worse at handling ground types, Xatu, and fire types. Octillery forces you to prepare for it in the team builder. One big example is Xatu. Xatu would like to use Hidden Power Ice to have the best DVs and matchup versus Dugtrio, but it more commonly uses Hidden Power Electric to have the best Sleep Talk pulls against Octillery. Chinchou is viable mostly because it counters Octillery and uses it as an offensive opportunity. A lot of teams deal with Octillery by using a combination of Pokemon. Gloom plus Hidden Power Electric Octillery or Dugong handles both Ice Beam and Hidden Power Electric variants of Octillery. Gloom walls Hidden Power Electric, and Octillery or Dugong wall Ice Beam. Likewise, stall teams use Bayleaf and either Mantine or Dugong to stall it out. Octillery is often checked based on its set, and you should scout it as soon as possible. If you don't prepare for Octillery in GSCNU, don't expect to win a lot. Octillery is very common and it will mess you up. Despite all that though, Octillery isn't flawless. Octillery's main problem is its poor speed stat. Octillery gets outsped by the majority of GSCNU, only outspeeding Sudowoodo, Graveler, Lickitung and Pineco. This can make it difficult for Octillery to get in and rest its HP back when low. It makes it more feasible to punish it on the switch. Octillery is also hard countered by the semi-common Chinchou, who uses it as an offensive opportunity. Since Octillery needs to use Rest Hawk to stick around, it can't cover Gloom and Water types at the same time. Octillery isn't great into most of the tier's mixed and physical attackers. Pokemon like Sattler, Primeape, and Weezing all outspeed it and threaten it. Statler in particular can abuse Octillery with the combination of Light Screen and Curse, using it as setup opportunity when sleeping and setting up. Kingler also abuses Octillery if it decides to run Ice Beam. Octillery also faces competition from Dugong, who while less offensively potent, is faster and bulkier. Dugong itself can stalemate Octillery. Make no mistake though, Octillery is really good. While all those physical attackers can threaten it, they still can't switch in without taking a lot of damage from Surf. History-wise, Octillery has had a bit of a rollercoaster history. It started off very strong though. In the Mr. Mime metagame, Octillery was one of the premier Pokemon. The old GSCNU meta was in a lot of ways like the current metagame, so Octillery was fantastic. It checked prominent Pokemon, like Dugtrio, and it was a dangerous offensive threat. Chinchou was never used back then, so Octillery was countered based on its set. Octillery was very easy to slap on teams, and it was very consistent in battle. While Pikachu could OHKO it, the mouse couldn't switch in at all safely. Octillery wasn't a top 2 Pokemon back then, but it was still a menace. That is, until the 2018 Turing shifts ruined everything. At the end of 2018, Mr. Mime, Pikachu, and Haunter were moved up to UU, and several UU Pokemon dropped down to NU. This would make Octillery fall out of the metagame for over a year. Feraligatr, Golduck, and Poliwrath all dropped down to GSCNU, and they completely outclassed Octillery. They were all faster, bulkier, and had better move pools. Raichu was also extremely prominent at this time, and it hard countered Octillery. There was no reason to use Octillery in the Raichu metagames. Just like that, it had gone from a top tier Pokemon to non-existent. Even after Feraligatr's banned, it was still outclassed by Poliwrath and Golduck. Octillery desperately needed the water types and Raichu to get banned, and luckily they were eventually removed. Raichu, Poliwrath and Golduck were banned at the tail end of 2019, bringing us to the modern metagame. At first, Octillery seemed like it had returned to glory. The modern metagame resembled the Mr. Mime metagame, a meta that Octillery excelled in. Octillery was very prominent in the early months of 2020, until a certain Little Cup Pokemon ruined everything. Chinchou exploded in popularity around April of 2020, becoming one of the most used Pokemon in the format. This was very bad news for Octillery, as this small angular fish completely countered it. Dugong also exploded in popularity at this time, and it gave Octillery serious competition. While Octillery was put at number 5 on the first iteration of the GCNU viability rankings, it dropped lower and lower as 2020 went on. It eventually fell to 17 in the early months of 2021. Octillery had failed to replicate its dominance in the Mr. Mime metagame. Or so people thought. After the viability rankings update in February 2021, Octillery quietly began a path of redemption. As 2020 went on, players in a way rediscovered Octillery. Chinchou was still prominent, but it wasn't all over the place like it was in 2020. Plus, Chinchou is a flawed Pokemon, and there's a lot of ways to punish it. Outside of the Chinchou matchup, Octillery is incredible. Players began to value it more than Dugong too, due to its increased power. Public opinion on Octillery kept improving in 2021, until the Never Use Snake Trap occurred at the end of the year. This was where Octillery proved itself in tournament play. It was the 5th most used Pokemon, and it had a great win rate. In the GSC Premier League that happened around the same time, it was the 4th most used Pokemon. Octillery had managed to bounce back from its poor start in the new metagame. It only got better from here on out. In the next edition of the Never Use Snake Draft at the end of 2022, it was the 3rd most used Pokemon, trailing behind the metagame defining Xatu and Pineco. By this point, there was no one doubting Octillery. It was one of the best Pokemon in the tier. When the GCNU viability rankings were updated in March 2023, Octillery skyrocketed from 17th place to 2nd place. Xatu was the only thing standing between it and the number 1 spot. There was even someone who nominated Octillery as the best Pokemon in GCNU. Octillery has returned to greatness, and it looks like it will stay at the top of the metagame.